I'm Michael Killen. Two guests tonight, both are very interesting men. One is producing the Stanford Energy Summit 2016 in June, and the second one is the mayor of Palo Alto. Jim, how are you?
Very well. Thanks for having me.
So, you're a doctor, Dr. Jim Sweeney?
Dr. James Sweeney, but Jim is what everybody calls me.
Yes, I know. So, thank you for being here. And for the 5th year in a row, you are producing the Energy Summit, the Silicon Valley Energy Summit 2016. I'll be going to it. I always go to it. I always learn a lot. And on several occasions, the networking was so good, I developed a relationship with the governor's office. NASA called me. I met the NASA person, and we developed a project together, and I'm delighted. I notice in the program that you have two powerful speakers from the government of California. You want to talk about them?
Yeah, I'm very pleased. We're going to launch with what Mary Nichols calls a duet. Mary Nichols is chairman of the Air Resources Board, and Bob Weisenmiller is chairman of the California Energy Commission. They are going to do a duet. They will give a joint presentation. It's not one going to talk, then the other. They're going to jointly talk about where we're going in California energy policy and climate policy.
Okay. Briefly give us the mission statement of the Air Resource Board.
Well, the Air Resources Board, don't even remember their specific mission statement, but the important thing is that they have the legislative requirements to set the rules up for the climate change, the carbon dioxide reductions for the state of California. So they are the ones that run the cap and trade system. They're the ones that have the low carbon fuel standard. They set up all of the rules under AB 32 to reduce carbon dioxide emissions in the state of California.
I think the first time I met you several years ago, you told me, watch the air quality rules and the legislation in the federal government and the state, and that would give me an idea where the markets are going in this state and maybe nationally when we talk about the federal. And that would help me get a good, and other people get a good feel where things change that are really important. You remember that?
No, but that's okay.
Okay, so Mary Nichols is the chairperson, and she's going to be one of your speakers. And the other fellow is
Bob Weisenmiller, and he chairs the California Energy Commission, and they are really the energy policy agency of the state of California, located in Sacramento.
So if I was a marketing person, knowing that those two persons are there, and knowing that energy is so important to just about every market, everything we do, if I go to your event, I would gain deep insights into how various markets are going to develop in the state of California. Would that be correct?
Yes, but more importantly, it'll give you some insights as to what the state's going to be doing to deal with this massive problem of global climate change. We have requirements to reduce the carbon dioxide emissions. They have, at the Air Resource Board, they have implemented and are continuing to implement additional rules that will affect all of the industry, the transportation sector, the cost of fuels in California. Very powerful and influential board.
Okay. Can I ask, would you remind our audience, what are the goals of the state for reducing greenhouse gas emissions?
Well, the long-term goal is to reduce the emissions by 80% from what it has been in the past. And they have intermediate goals, but the big picture, that's the 2050 goal. Not law yet, but a goal is to cut down to those levels that are consistent with what we believe in the world we need in order to deal with the threat of global climate change.
So the reference is 1990. That's
Yes.
one reference. And what is the year that we want to meet the goals again?
Well,
2030?
There's different goals for different times. The longest term goal is 2050, and that is an 80% reduction. There's about the goal, I'm not quite sure, I think it's about a 50% reduction by about 2030.
Okay. And you brought up the word transportation. So, and I can look around and I see Tesla and I see BMW has a lab here and other folks, maybe Toyota, whatever. You know this better than me. But you're going to have speakers at your event that would bring the marketplace, different people up to date on developments, new standards, new approaches for having greater efficiency of cars. Is that?
We're doing less on transportation than on buildings. There are many things that are happening throughout the California that will lead to reduced use of energy in buildings, but we're changing the structure of the electricity system. There's there is a clean energy a community energy. Boy, I'm gobbling all of these words now. In Silicon Valley, from Santa Clara County, San Mateo County, the clean energy authorities that will be allowing people to purchase electricity outside of the utilities and move to a cleaner energy community. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about some of the water issues. We'll talk about clean manufacturing and advanced manufacturing. So it's a whole set of things that we think are going to be important for the Silicon Valley and this industry. And in addition, the finance issues that we face.
Let me go back. So if people are interested in, they have a startup maybe, and they want to make contacts and learn some of the new trends, financing, getting money, etc., investments, you're going to cover that.
Right.
And you're going to cover opportunities and solutions for improving the energy efficiency of buildings.
Including, we're going to look at digital cities, and something's happening in digital cities, which is one of the new real important movements.
Could you help me understand what digital cities is? It the more wiring digitally of the governments?
Think of the Internet of Things, where your refrigerators and your appliances are communicating back and forth with one another in order to either use electricity in the appropriate times, to use it more efficiently. Now put it on steroids, and you think about what can be happening in the whole control systems of cities. You think about both the large buildings, the small buildings, and the interconnections of those, and those are beginning to happen.
And so do you have a perspective of Silicon Valley trying to foster the implementation of digital cities here? Because you're right here, no? Where is this?
But I think that some of it's going to happen. A lot of it's happening, by the way, in London right now, and some of the lessons from London are going to be brought in. But I don't think it's going to be one great big digital city. I think it's the digitization of the urban structures are going to be happening over time, and it'll be growing organically.
Okay, now that's a big topic, great scope, and I know how it is planning an event, sometimes you don't have all your speakers lined up and you have options. You got, okay. Do you have your speaker lined up for the digital cities?
We have most of the speakers lined up. We have a little bit of adjustment yet to do. But if anybody wants to look at this, who the speakers are, they can go to our website, which is sves.stanford.edu. SVES for Silicon Valley Energy Summit.
Okay, or they could search Jim Sweeney.
Nah, they can go to the
Summit.
Silicon Valley Energy Summit. That's the best way of finding it.
Okay, now, I have always enjoyed going to your events, and often George Schultz, former secretary of this and that, is always there giving his insights, his wisdom, and Rich Perry, former Secretary of Defense. Will you have them there?
I don't know if Bill Perry and George Schultz will be there. They're always invited. They will be invited again. Whether they're going to be able to be there or not is up to them at this point.
Okay, now, I try to listen to you very carefully, and when I hear you have the chair of the California Air Resource Board, that's political, or, working for the governor, I believe, and then you have the chair of the Energy Commission. It seems to me you are presenting a considerable amount of depth and knowledge about energy issues, clean air, et cetera, in this state. Are you planning to have any important speaker on the federal level?
Yes, the head of the Advanced Manufacturing Office of the Department of Energy will be there, and we have some invitations out. I can't tell you the name, but we have at least one senator who may well be there, and we sure hope she will be able to make it.
All right, I won't press you for the name or anything, but what is noteworthy of whomever that person is what did you invite somebody, why that particular senator?
We're going to narrow it down to who she is, aren't we?
No, I don't want to know.
Because of her role on the Energy Committee in the Senate. Let's put it this way: the closing speaker will be very good, and everybody's going to be very happy with that closing speaker.
Okay, so we might have some insights on the federal level from the Senate. You're going to have insights, real good insights on California, some transportation, some business opportunities associated with energy efficiency for buildings. Are you going to have any tools?
We're going to have some of the tools for promoting energy efficiency. So we'll have a session in there, and then we're going to have something that explores the tools or the options in dealing with the water problems of California.
Okay. We must, in a second, end, but first of all, I made that for your event.
Yeah.
And that'll be in the lobby. And I just want to say thank you. It's always an honor to make hopefully an important painting for you. So, what?
Before we go, I do want to say this has been one of the highlights of the conference. This is the only energy conference I know that has some beautiful, meaningful artwork in there. You do it for us each year, so thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for having me here.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
My guest has been Jim Sweeney. He is a professor, the head of the Precourt Energy Efficiency Center at Stanford University. June 3rd, I'll be at his event. I hope you get an opportunity to be at the event. My next guest is one of the most dynamic mayors of a city that I've ever met, and he is Burt, the mayor of Palo Alto.
Hi, Michael.
Hello. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you.
And I recall one of the first times I met you several years ago, and I was quite surprised at your aggressiveness, and you approached me and you said you were committed to helping in any way, all ways, making Palo Alto a leader in reducing carbon greenhouse gas emissions. And I said to myself, well, gee, that's amazing. There's so many other things in this world that we want cities to do. And you told me we're taking care of everything. So I now notice that you have pushed forward setting new energy greenhouse gas emission objectives, goals for the city. Could you tell me what they are, and then we try to put them into perspective?
Yes, over the last almost 2 years, we've been working on the next generation of both our sustainability and our climate action plans. And so we've merged the two, and it's called our SCAP, Sustainability and Climate Action Plan. The City Council just a couple of weeks ago adopted officially the goal of reducing our greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by the year 2030 compared to what we consumed in 1990.
80% reduction against the reference point of 1990 by the year 2030. How does that objective compare to that the Obama administration might have?
Well, the Kyoto Accord, which is really the baseline, had this as a global standard and objective to achieve this by 80% reduction by 2050. The truth is that very few nations or states or cities are anywhere near achieving that. But California has been a real leader, and we have this as a strong goal. And we've made a lot of this progress in the state because of energy efficiency going all the way back to the first Brown administrations, and then more recently our very aggressive renewable energy programs. Palo Alto has had its own set of goals that are similar but have been basically more aggressive yet than the state, and we're actually further along at meeting those goals than almost anyone.
All right, you brought up the state of California, and I just want to be sure I hear what you're saying clearly. The city of Palo Alto has goals to reduce greenhouse gases by a certain time. The state has some goals to do the same. Which entity has more aggressive goals?
The city of Palo Alto. We're 80% by 2030, and the state is 80 by 2050.
Oh, so 80% city of Palo Alto by 2020.
2030.
2030, and would you say the state goal?
The state is 80% by 2050, which is actually recognized as one of the more aggressive goals of any state or nation that has been adopted. But that's a goal. We actually in Palo Alto are adopting a plan. And so a goal is, in some ways, somewhere in between being an aspiration and a commitment. But really, the rubber meets the road with the plan and the execution on the plan.
So your goal, which is also a statement of a future position, and you're saying you already have a plan in place to execute it. Before we go there, I am wondering, could you compare your goals to that of at least one European country, maybe Germany? I know you travel.
Yeah, and I'm not remembering their numerical goals. But Germany certainly, for instance, has been a global leader in adopting early renewable energy in solar and wind. And Germany, by leading the way, has helped all of the rest of us benefit by improving the technologies through greater adoption and driving down the costs, so that we now in Palo Alto just signed one of the lowest cost solar energy power purchase agreements ever executed at 3.7 cents a kilowatt hour. So it's cheaper than much brown power.
All right, I heard you, but I'm interested in something else. you have pushed forward, probably harder than anyone else, to have this very aggressive goal. In terms of the benefit of that goal vis-a-vis the rest of the world, what is it?
So in 2009, we had the COP15 conference in Copenhagen, and that was the great hope that we were going to have an international agreement on climate change, and unfortunately it blew up. The following year at COP16, there was a recommitment that the best we could do was to make great progress on reducing by local governments and corporations. What happened in Paris this last fall was the achievement of the last 5 years of progress by states and local governments helped to a very great degree drive the COP21 International Agreement on Climate Change.
All right, but I still didn't quite hear why does the city of Palo Alto and you have to be the leader? Is it to influence other cities, is that really important to you?
So it's really two levels. One is to be able to demonstrate how it can be done, and the other is to lead and have a consortium of cities have accomplished what we've done over the last number of years, which drives the international agreements like we just had at COP21.
Okay, so you want to use the quality of leadership to leverage it to get other countries, organizations, cities to go forward. But now, doesn't this put stress, this leadership position, stress on the businesses and the people of Palo Alto? Or is there some benefit to them that...
So one of the arguments against the Kyoto Accords was always that you couldn't have cheap energy, clean energy, and a strong economy. They were mutually exclusive. Palo Alto has electricity that is 30% below the cost of PG&E. We own our own utilities in Palo Alto. 30% less than PG&E, 100% carbon-free, and one of the strongest economies in the world. So one of the most valuable things about our model is we've refuted that argument, that those are competing trends.
Okay, it's fortunate you have the electricity. And I also hear that using so-called clean natural gas is too much of a polluter for you and the city. Am I correct? You are trying to migrate as much of the businesses and the consumers in Palo Alto off of gas and onto electricity.
Well, now that we've eliminated the carbon footprint from our electricity supply, the main two remaining sources are transportation, principally cars, and natural gas use. So in natural gas use, we're trying to come up with a plan to reduce the impact of that natural gas. And it's a combination of energy efficiency and perhaps even feeding actually renewable natural gas sources from agricultural and waste sources into the gas supply. And finally, to, where appropriate and cost effective, to transition people to greater use of clean electricity over natural gas.
Okay, now I was surprised a few weeks ago. I attended a city council meeting. The place was packed, and multiple people asked me to attend this particular meeting, and I had no idea what was going to happen. And I have to admit, I was inspired. I really was, by the enthusiasm of the people of Palo Alto, who I felt were your cheerleaders. And I actually said to myself, God, you have worked an awful lot of people to get so many important people to support this new goal to reduce carbon emissions, greenhouse gas emissions. So I was impressed. But I'd just like to ask you, I know you've been around the science, but you're mostly in the government. What's the big deal of trying to significantly reduce greenhouse gases? What's the big deal?
If the global community does not reduce greenhouse gases enough to cap the amount of of global warming at somewhere around the 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius, then we're going to have really significant impacts on our water supply, on our weather patterns, on our climate, and we already have globally millions of people who are actually climate refugees today. So much so that the UN will not recognize climate refugees as a refugee status because it would overwhelm the UN refugee system. That's already happening. But we're really at the tip of the iceberg today. If we don't resolve this problem, we have the most of the economy of the tech community is in waters that are threatened by sea level rise, right in our Bay Area in Silicon Valley.
Interesting. So, so you're a believer that there is already too much greenhouse gases up there, maybe, and you believe it's going to be there for 1,000 years, and you believe any more that goes up is really a terrible development.
Well, what came out of the previous scientific thinking was that if we capped the climate temperature rise at 2 degrees Celsius, we might forestall the most catastrophic impacts of climate change. The scientific community now believes we have to work toward 1.5 degrees Celsius. We're seeing the impacts and the amount of CO2 that's already in our atmosphere, which is the greatest we've had in tens and tens of millennia, is already going to result in significant climate change. The question is, can we forestall it from being worse than it will already be?
Okay. Well, I want to say I have thoroughly enjoyed my relationship with you. And as you know, I've recently interviewed also Jim Sweeney. I also thoroughly enjoy my relationship with him. And I hope I see you at his Energy Summit 2016 on June 3rd.
I'm looking forward to it. He has me on one of his panels. So.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm honored to be there.
My guest, ladies and gentlemen, has been Burt, the mayor of the powerhouse city, Palo Alto.
Thank you.